Now, don't for a moment think this obsession with toxic identity politics is only evident in America. It's Australia, not America, that is currently trying to enshrine race politics into the Constitution with a race-based referendum for the voice to Parliament. And already the yes side is resorting to personal attacks and hyperbole to guilt Australians into voting yes. Rather than address the substance of the arguments put forward by the no side, they just scream racism and indulge in a little gaslighting. Take, for example, Minister for Indigenous Australians, Linda Burney, speaking on the ABC's The Party Room this week.
When you go into that polling booth on your own with your moral compass on, you will know what you're voting for.
How about those of us who want to know details of this proposed constitutional change?
Those people that are against this are going backward.
If this is your way of trying to convince people to come over to your side, you need to get some help. This is not the way to do it.
It's by no means the only example we've seen in recent days of the simplistic and divisive arguments from the yes camp. Uluru Dialogue co-chair and Professor Megan Davis told a Universities Australia conference this week that universities' decision not to take a collective stance on the voice was false objectivity and silence is political, she said. Yeah, we can't be having objectivity of any sort. I mean, that's just not allowed this day and age. And here's co-chair of the Indigenous Voice to Parliament Design Group, Professor Marsha Langton. What's been her reaction when the Nationals announced they would not support the voice?
It would be terribly unfortunate for all Australians if the debate sinks into a nasty, eugenicist, 19th century style of debate about the superior race versus the inferior race.
Oh, in other words, you're a racist if you don't support the voice. Not only that, we'll disparage you with murderous metaphors. Indigenous leader Noel Pearson on the Nationals' decision and Indigenous Senator Jacinta Price.
Little proud. Little pride, a man of little pride. And he's like a kindergarten kid. It's really Jacinta's decision. And ultimately, it's a tragic redneck celebrity vortex that she's caught up in. And their strategy was to find a black fella to punch down on other black fellas. Bullets are fashioned by the CIS and the IPA, but the person pulling the trigger it's a black hand that's pulling the trigger.
Oh, just so offensive. Seriously, genuinely offensive. And thank goodness, though, Rowan and James, that our PM is above all this. Surely he wouldn't indulge in this ugly, divisive race politics that casts half the country as racist.
Yes, there are already people out there pushing misinformation on social media, drumming up outrage, trying to start a culture war.
I've got you. So if you're doing things like pointing out on social media that Albanese has not provided information on the voice model, well, you're starting a culture war. But if you're trying to change the Constitution by enshrining race politics that divides us by ethnicity and undermines the democratic process of one man, one vote, then you're not waging a culture war. I'm glad Albert cleared all that up. Then there's the emotional blackmail argument, which is another go-to method when you're short on substance.
How Australians would feel who'd supported this change the day after a referendum if it's successful. I ask you to think about the counterfactual as well and how Australia is perceived internationally as well.
Shame your citizens internationally, Prime Minister. You not only shame your country, but you shame yourself. And talk about rich. Here's Albo again.
I say to those opposite, I ask them to join me in having an open mind, but importantly an open heart when it comes to these issues.
Pure chutzpah. Whilst crude, these tactics are effective. They appeal to emotion, they dumb down the debate by casting one side as mean and the other side as virtuous. But one thing you can count on with the left is that they will eventually eat their own.
But does it trouble you that you might end up on the side with Peter Dutton and the Liberals?
To be honest, it troubles me that white progressives use that as an excuse. And that's part of the problem, PK, that, you know, if you vote no, then you're going to stand with Peter Dutton or Pauline Hanson. That's systemic racism right there, that everyone's hand on heart, let's save the Aborigines, let's give them a voice. But you don't want the progressives to hear this, do you, PK?
No, you're on the radio station, so they're hearing you. But the counterfactual,
you're out there saying Bernie's a legend, so we know where your allegiances lie, and you need to allow your audiences to understand that there is a progressive no.
Now, that's the sort of truth-telling I can get on board with. Thank you. But what Lydia Thorpe has exposed is that the race-based referendum and a voice to Parliament is not the end game. And what will follow, according to those who are pushing this agenda, is truth-telling and treaty. Now, Lydia just wants to skip to the treaty part, but be in no doubt that is precisely where we'll eventually end up if this referendum is successful.